I have the recording turned on. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Melissa Potvin, and I am your CA Community Manager. Thank you so much for taking time today for joining our community webcast, How Trustpilot Monitors Over 600 Microservices with Runscope. This is actually our third community presentation about Runscope, all meant to educate and drive awareness about this newly acquired product, which is now part of the CA family. I'm very happy to introduce you to Trustpilot. Trustpilot is an online review community that helps consumers buy with confidence. You should check them out at trustpilot.com. And I'm happy to introduce you today to Dimitru Zavrotsky. And he is from Trustpilot, and he will talk to you today about how and why they are using Runscope. Also with me today is Brian Whitmarsh. Most of you already know him and have heard him, and he's active in our communities. And Brian is with our product management team. So just a quick few housekeeping items before we get started. All lines are on mute to prevent background noise. We encourage you to ask questions. You should use the Q&A panel within the WebEx. Ask your questions there. We'll get to them as soon as possible. This event is being recorded as usual. We will publish the recording to the community, if not later today, then possibly tomorrow. So that's all from me. Brian, I pass to you. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thanks, Melissa. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. And all right, so I'm excited to hear from Dimitru as well. Before we hear from the customer, I just wanted to take a little bit of time to kind of set up what is Runscope, what are we talking about, and I have just a little simple product demo that I want to do just to show you how easy it is to leverage the technology and how powerful the solution is. First of all, why do we care? What are APIs? I'm sure most of us on the phone understand what an API is, but really an API is a building block for your applications. And more and more, these building blocks are not only internal, but externally available. So the idea is that we're allowing folks to consume content, consume data, by providing this interface or this API to both internal and external customers. And it's so important that these APIs are highly available, that they don't go down, that they perform well, because not only are individual customers building their solutions on these APIs, but third parties are as well. I mean, if you think of a simple example of just tracking a package. We all went through Christmas and holidays and sent a bunch of packages, and I'm sure a lot of us were tracking those packages with various different sites. There's a number of different companies that have built application tracking, and they've integrated their shipping response and emails by including tracking, and they're getting that tracking from the actual carrier, and they're leveraging those carrier APIs in order to retrieve that data. And so, it's definitely important, and we see it as the building blocks for applications, especially more and more applications that are mobile, web, wearable. They're getting their access or getting their information from various APIs. These API touchpoints are growing rapidly. All the studies that we see this exponentially growing. More and more of the APIs are available. And more of our applications are relying on third-party APIs. And a lot of times we don't have control of those third-party APIs, but they impact the user experience. And so we want to make sure that we're monitoring and tracking the performance and reliability of those APIs, because in the end, it's our brand that's going to get tarnished if those APIs aren't available. And so there's a lot of pressure to make sure that we provide the best user experience, because if we don't, we know customers are way too willing to move to other solutions, and we can lose revenue in that fashion. When an API fails, an application is going to fail, because applications are relying on these APIs. And what happens when APIs fail? Well, simply put, Sometimes response times can just increase. That's the simplest. Sometimes applications can just crash because they're not expecting for the API not to be available. In a lot of cases, when there's a bad experience, what do customers do? They get on the chats, they get on social media, they complain about it. That's bad, right? That tarnishes our brand. We can lose potential revenue generating opportunities because maybe a transaction or a shopping cart couldn't get completed because of this API failure. But there's a lot at stake when we're talking about APIs, and we definitely rely on these APIs. So what's Runscope about? Well, Runscope I love this solution because I'm a usability guy, and I really love clean solutions that are very easy to get up and running and for you to provide and see value in those solutions in a short amount of time. I'm going to show you a demo of that to show you how easy it is. But Runscope's focus is on allowing it for you to monitor the APIs, monitor the responsiveness of them, make sure your third parties are meeting up to particular SLAs, make sure that the offerings are highly available, make sure the data that they're returning is the right data versus just any data. And Runscope has over 1,000 customers. Many people depend on this solution to give them that visibility into what's taking place within their APIs. All right, to keep it simple, and if you don't remember anything about the presentation today, at least my portion of it, think of it as Runscope providing the ability to monitor these three key aspects of your APIs. First of all, are they up? Are they up or down, so green or red? How's the performance of the APIs? Are they responding in sub-second time frames? Are they not? What's the performance in different geographic locations? And then what's the integrity of the data that's actually coming back? Is that data the right data? What is that data coming back? So these are three key pillars that Runscope makes it very easy for you to monitor. All right, now I'm going to just jump into a simple demo. And let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, this is the Runscope interface. And like I said, it's very clean, very easy to get set up. And it just takes a few minutes for you to create your own test account if you want to try this out after the presentation. Please don't run away yet. But definitely feel free to try this out. It's very simple. I'm going to go ahead and start off by creating a test. So we'll create a test. We'll name it here. Let's call this test pilot demo. All right, we've created a test, and step one, you have the ability to do a number of different commands. Now, we're actually going to do a get method, but obviously you have the ability to do post, patch, delete options. So you have a lot of different options here. So we're going to go ahead and do a get. And then it simply asks you, what is the URL of your API? Now, there's a publicly available API interface. It's kind of fun to play with. It's called decoupling. So you can simply go to decoupling.api.com if you want to try this after. And it has some simple APIs that you can call to validate the solution here. The first one is we're going to get a deck of cards, and we're going to shuffle the deck. So I'm going to take that URL, simply paste it in here, and I'm going to go ahead and save and run. You see over on the left, it's processing that, and we had a pass test. That's good to start off your demo with. Here we see that it made the API call, and it received a status code 200, which is A-OK. Everything's great. And here's the actual response. So we see that we got a response. The JSON body says, yep, we shuffled the deck. We got a deck ID. It was successful, and there's 52 cards remaining in the deck of cards. You always want to count those cards before you play poker with your friends. You never know about them. All right, so that was a very easy way to call that API, and we had a simple assertion that just said, did we get a valid status code, yes or no? Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and edit that. And I'm going to add an additional assertion. Here we have the one already, which says status code equals 200. Let's make sure the performance of this API is adequate. So I will go ahead and set a assertion based on response time. And I want to make sure it's less than 3 seconds. Rule of thumb, when you're working with e-commerce, you're working with mobile apps, you want to make sure that you're not giving customers a spinny dial of bad reviews for anything more than a few seconds. 3 is your limit. It's actually it's closer to sub 1 second, but let's go ahead and just set that assertion, and we'll save and run. All right, second test passed, that's a good thing. And we see that not only did we get a successful 200, which everything's okay, but we also received a sub 3 second or 3,000 millisecond response time. So it was 282, so well under our 3,000 threshold that we set. All right, quick test, API is available, yes. The performance of the API is adequate. Now let's start looking into validating some of the response or some of the data that's coming from the API. Go ahead and edit here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually chain a few different requests. Now, if we look at our last response, we had some information that was returned in the JSON body. And the next API call that I'm going to make is I want to actually draw a few cards from the deck. And so in order to do this, I need a deck ID of the deck that I just shuffled. I don't want anybody pulling another deck out of under the table that has not been just shuffled. So we'll go ahead and see that I want to make sure that I can utilize this deck ID. So what I want to do here is I'm going to add a variable. And the variable I'm going to use here, I'm just going to call it deck ID. And we'll call the variable name the same thing. All right, so what I'm doing here is I am telling the solution that when it gets that JSON response, I want you to populate a variable called deck ID with the deck ID. So it's intelligent enough, if you name it the same thing, it should pick up on that. So sure enough, it was able to create that variable. So now we have deck ID set to whatever deck ID was returned from the initial shuffling of the deck. Now I want to use that deck ID because I want to pull a couple cards off of the deck. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to edit this test. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to chain another step, another get. So I just say add another request. And I'm going to, after shuffling a deck, I might have copied and pasted. Let's copy this. And let's paste. All right. I want to then take, draw 2 cards off the deck, count equals 2. And I need to provide the deck ID. Well, I don't want to do that statically because that would not be scalable. So I'm going to see over here on the right-hand side, because I now have that deck ID variable, I can simply replace that position holder there, deck ID, or variable holder, with a variable that should get populated by Runscope. So that looks good. So I think I'm going to be able to draw a couple cards off the deck. Let me go ahead and save and run. All right, let's look at the results here. All right, so here's my first step, which was shuffle the deck. I got a status code 200. It was faster than 3 seconds, and I set a variable. Now you see that variable that was set was the deck ID, and sure enough, the second step was able to use that variable in its API call to draw 2 cards off the deck. So we successfully did that. Now what I want to do is I want to do some additional validation of data. So I go down to my second step here. I see that my last response of drawing cards off the deck, I actually received 2 cards. I received, oh, that's good, since I drew 2 cards. I received the 10 of diamonds, and I received the 7 of clubs. And then, because I took 2 cards off the deck, the remaining value is 50. So I may want to validate that, yes, if I had a 52-card deck, I draw 2 cards, simple math, I should always have remaining equals 50 after the second step. So let's just validate that. I go back to assertions, and I can say add an assertion. I want it to look into the JSON body, look for the property remaining, and make sure that number equals 50. All right, save and run. Great, so I got a pass. And if you notice now, sure enough, the remaining body, 50, was equal to 50. Now, at any point, if any of these steps fail, then my test fails as well. So I can just show you that. Let's go ahead and change the assertion remaining equal to 51. I've played with a few people that there may have been a wrong deck count, but let's just make sure that Runscope can validate that data. It's running the test again. You see it working up here. All right, queued, failed. So at any point, if one of these assertions fail, my overall test fails. Sure enough, 50 was not equal to 51. All right, let's change that back. Let me go to the right section. Here we go. All right, so back to 50. We're good here. Now I want to show you some other aspects. Now I could spend an hour demoing this, but I want to make sure we get to Dimitri, give him plenty of time. But things like locations, for example. This one is running in the U.S., in the Virginia Center in the U.S. Latency can vary greatly depending on where it is. So we have a number of different hosted sites to be able to run these different tests from. Obviously, we can schedule them to run every few minutes, every 5 minutes. You get reports. So you see how easy it was, and I encourage you to go out and to test it out yourself. But there's a lot of flexibility with the solution. I was showing you kind of the basics, but you can get quite complicated and run pre-scripts, post-scripts. You can grab authentication IDs or certificates before you run to leverage during your calls. So very verbose solution. All right, let me jump back. I just have a couple of slides that I just want to wrap up with real quick. I did want to mention that while this is a SaaS first offering, if you do have APIs that are only available internal, you have the ability to load a little component that will actually run these tests locally and report the information, the testing results up to the cloud. So whether you have all SaaS-based or SaaS-accessible APIs, or you do have a mixture of SaaS and on-premise, this solution will work for either solution. Again, just as a summary, we've talked about and kind of run through the key aspects of, being able to make sure the APIs are available, ensuring SLAs, making sure that they're performing adequately, and also validating the data, making sure you have data integrity with the responses of the APIs. Simply go to www.runscope.com, and like I said, you can get this set up in just a few minutes and be testing and doing the exact same demo I did and see the value in a very short amount of time, so I encourage you to do that. But now I'm going to hand it over to a real customer, Dimitru, if you wouldn't mind taking it away and explaining how you are leveraging and your organization is leveraging Runscope for monitoring of over 600 microservices, which is awesome. Go ahead and stop and switch it over. Take it away, Dimitru.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Thank you, Melissa. Hello, everybody, and my name is Dumitru Zavrotsky, and I'm a test automation engineer at Trustpilot, and I will talk today about how Runscope helps us test and monitor over 600 microservices. I will start with introducing what Trustpilot is, and Trustpilot is an online review community that helps consumers choose which products to buy, and also it helps companies grow their businesses. So it's all about reviews. And just to give you an understanding how big we are, we have 40 million reviews, or more than 40 million reviews currently, of 200,000 businesses on our website. You can see a small picture of the website in the slide. And then we get around 1 million new reviews each month. And we also have 2.1 billion page views per month. So this is what is Trustpilot, and yeah, I will start with how we started working. Trustpilot started in 2007, and then in the beginning we had a big monolithic application with all the code inside it, and yeah, so everything was in one application, and we had 2 or 3 week release sprints, and then we had the release manager who was making sure everything was working correctly. And then around 2014, we decided that it's not really scalable, so that we want to release faster, to deliver features faster, and then, yeah, we decided to move to microservices and decouple that big monolithic application into small microservices. And all the new services we added were already microservices after 2015. And that brought a challenge for us, so that now we had to test small microservices, because we had to be sure that everything is working fine and correctly. And so we started looking for a tool or yeah, some framework that will help us test and monitor all the small microservices. So initially, yeah, we made a list of features that we wanted to see in the tool, and then yeah, initially we had 6 tools on the list, and then we chose Runscope. The main reasons for choosing Runscope was that it is a cloud solution, meaning that everybody could access and work with it, because we have offices in different parts of the world, so we had yeah, we need that everybody have access to the cloud solution. And then it's very easy to set up and start using it. So yeah, that was also a key reason of choosing Runscope. And then yeah, it supports multiple environments, and then it's scalable, because we were adding more microservices, and then decoupling big monolithic applications. So yeah, it's scalable enough, and it had integrations with the third-party tools that we needed at that point. So Yeah, we started by creating few tests and checking it out and how it works, and then we thought that we need to have a common test structure so that all the teams who work with Runscope understand it, and so that it's scalable enough, and everybody who add a new test, they know this test structure. So we created here a common test structure that everybody know and use, and then once the tests have been stable enough, we transferred ownership to the product teams, meaning that each team is owning not only the application but also the tests that execute upon this application. And then we have a product quality team that supports by providing guidelines, best practices, and checking that they are followed by all teams. So this is how we created a scalable solution using Runscope. So we are doing 4 main things in Runscope, and this is testing endpoints, API endpoints in isolation. We're trying to isolate API tests as much as possible, and so that whenever something is failing, the exact team know what is failing and why is it failing. Then we also do big end-to-end tests, mostly UI tests, and that they simulate user action on the website, and we also use Runscope for that. And we execute tests from multiple locations, geographical locations, because sometimes we have to be sure that everything is working fine from different locations and not only one. And then we are also using response time metrics. We set a threshold for the test, and then if for example, API response is returned within a specific threshold, then it's fine. If it's not, then we need to inform the corresponding team about that. And now I will talk about the features of Runscope which are used by us. And first and top feature is script library, and Runscope has a very nice script library where you can store JavaScript code. Initially, we used JavaScript scripts on different tests, but then we understood it's not scalable enough, and then Runscope has a script library where you can store JavaScript code snippets and libraries, and then use them across all the tests. So we use scripts to generate all test data. So all test data is generated by the scripts. That's because it has to match to specific pattern, and then it has to be independent. So we generate it using scripts, and then we also store keys, passwords, tokens, and things like that, which are used in many tests, so that whenever anything is changing, we have to change it only in one place in the script library. And then, we use a AWS library to sign AWS API requests. So it's very convenient for us and scalable. Currently we have 46 script snippets and 1 library, and we use them across hundreds of tests. We use scripts to perform advanced assertions on API responses, to modify requests and modify responses, and do something like some advanced logic on the API tests. And subtest is the next key feature for us, because we are using subtests to construct almost all of our tests. It's used like a constructor. We can create like a test setup and tear down using subtests. And all the repeatable actions like checking emails or doing something with the APIs is done through using subtests. And you actually see on the screen in the picture we have a specific bucket in Runscope. It's a collection of tests which is used only for this purpose to create tests using like as I said, as a constructor to create different tests. And then whenever anything changes, we again have to update it only in one place in this bucket. Yeah, and then Runscope has their own APIs which we are using a lot. APIs are used mainly to do something with shared environments or add variables to environments, extract, or even run the tests themselves from some other applications, and so manipulate everything in Runscope. You can use Runscope APIs, which are available on the documentation page. So yeah, this is also very nice feature which we use a lot. Yeah, also I didn't mention that to update system token we also use Runscope APIs because we need to be sure that it never expires. System tokens are never expired. Yeah, and we have as I said, for end-to-end tests we use integration between Runscope and Ghost Inspector. Ghost Inspector is a tool for UI to perform UI tests, and we use it a lot. And then, as you see in the picture, Runscope has incoming request or webhook, so that whenever UI test finishes execution, we get the results immediately, so that we don't have to wait. But incoming requests can be used, in many other for many other things, and it's very good. It works like a webhook. And then we also integrated some of the tests into Octopus. We are doing continuous delivery here and continuous integration, and then we have all the tests running on a scheduled basis, meaning that they run like depending on the importance of the test, from every 1 minute to like every hour, or once a day, depending on the importance. But some of the tests, we need to be sure whenever we deploy anything to production, we just to double check it. We are also triggering those tests from Octopus. So whenever anything has been deployed, we run the test immediately, and then if any of the tests or if all of them are failing, then the release is rolled back. So it's also an option for different companies to be sure that there are no corrupt releases deployed to production, and everything what's deployed doesn't have any bugs in it. Okay, and then then Runscope has also Slack integration. Runscope has a native Slack integration. The one you see on the screen is not native. We expanded it a little to make, like if you look on the left pictures, there are two buttons, acknowledge and unassigned. To make it work, we use Slack API. So we basically use both Slack and Runscope integration to do that, so that whenever a team gets Slack alert on the failing test, they can a person or developer or whoever can acknowledge an alert, and then everybody else can see that who is working on fixing the bugs or fixing the test. But native Runscope Slack integration works in the same way. It's only a button which is missing, so it's fine. And then Yeah, we built in test status into our alert screen. We have alert screen here in the company where we get all the alerts coming from different sources and from different tools, and we also use Runscope APIs to actually show the status of the test on the alerts screen, meaning that, yeah, we just run these APIs which are available, and then we get the status. Whenever something is failing, we can see these kind of alerts as you see in the picture. And yeah, we have an application performance management tool that we use because in the initial phase when we started using Runscope, we had to prove to the top management with the numbers that Runscope is valuable tool for us, so we are using it to show how many tests are failing and when they failed, and we can also get some nice graphs showing the period and time when the tests have been failing and how much impact they had on our applications. And yeah, this can be done also through integrations Runscope has. And I believe that's it. And if there are any questions, I can answer them.
Thank you so much. Well, since everyone joined my audio broadcast today, the way to ask questions is through the WebEx. Brian, any closing thoughts? Otherwise, I'll close us out.
Yeah, no, maybe since we have some extra time, Dimitru, would you mind describing kind of one of your more complicated tests that Runscope was able to facilitate and provide flexibility for you with?
Yeah, sure. As I said, we have different kind of tests, and one type is we test APIs in isolation, but we also have a very complex end-to-end test. And yeah, these end-to-end tests, we have here a queuing system, meaning that items, they flow from one queue to another until they get to a specific state. And we cannot just execute set of API calls to do something, and we need to accommodate to follow the queues. And Runscope helped us doing that because there is sometimes we have to wait for the queue to be processed, and yeah, Runscope has some delays. They have incoming webhooks, so whenever item appears in the specific state or in a specific queue, then we get response immediately. We don't have to wait. And yeah, I believe the most complex test is when we send invitation to a customer to leave review on our website, and then the item flows through 4 queues actually, and sometimes in the peak hours these queues may be full, and then we need to wait for the item to be processed. And then when the item processes from one queue to another, we need also to execute UI tests to do something with that invitation. So, and we implemented that complex test using, we used most of the features that I named. They were subtests, we used code scripts, we used delays and conditions. And I think the task which is executed the longest is around 110 minutes. So you can imagine how long the task can run and what is it doing. So yeah, and wow. It was a great proof of concept how Runscope can both execute very short and exact tests which assert some one or few things, and also execute these complex tests for the items flowing between queues, and also doing something between whenever it's processed, and yeah, so that's it.
Great, yeah. Thanks for that description. That definitely helped out. And I think you hit the nail on the head when, your last part of the presentation, you're talking about how valuable the integrations are to you, because, a tool by itself isn't going to provide the full level of visibility that you need, because, when you get a failure, you want to make sure that you can understand the why of that failure, and that's, definitely those integrations, and, that's a huge value of what CA provides as a company, is that, now that Runscope is a part of CA, the integrations that Runscope has with, for example, our APM and our infrastructure monitoring, the other tools that CA provides can really help a failed test, get to root cause or why that test failed very, very quickly, so that resolution can be brought in a short amount of time. So that's great, and it's great to see that you're using and leveraging those integrations. All right, was there any, I see my chat line lit up. Let's see. Okay. Nope, just an internal chat. Anyone else like to ask any questions or have any feedback, or would you just like 27 minutes returned in your day, or not?
No questions on my side. Everyone is either bashful or you've been very, very thorough, which I'm sure is the case. This was really a special presentation. The community knows that we have many events, and what made this special was obviously having a customer here. So Dimitri, thank you so much. You took time to prepare and to present to the community. People that are attending this session now live are sure to benefit, as well as the many people, the thousands of people in the community that will see this and the recording after will benefit. So thank you. And again, I did record the session, so you can go into the community and watch the replay later. You could share it with colleagues. And if you have any questions for Dimitri that might come to mind later, please reach out to myself or Brian Whitmarsh, and we'll see what we can do. Stay close to the community. Keep the conversation going. I think that's a wrap for now. Brian and Dimitri, you can disconnect. We're all set. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Take care now. Bye.